Hi class, welcome to the first program of conditional statements, if statements, a password checker. Uh, the, in one of my little lectures, I talked about how, you know, you can kind of compare, things that you type in to whether, it's the correct password or not. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing here. You're going to need user input for this, obviously, and whichever user input you want to use, it doesn't really matter. Uh, the nice thing about dealing with strings, though, is you use the JOption pane, you don't have to convert it. It's already a string. But if you want to use the scanner, that's fine too. Honestly, I would encourage you to write it with both, just for practice. Do it one time with the scanner, do it another time with the JOption pane. That way you know how to use both of those in case you want to do one thing or the other. Now, here's how this program will work. Obviously, first off, you'll need user input. You can declare 3 strings if you want. You don't have to declare the strings. It's entirely up to you for the 3 passwords. Really, all you need, and these are the 3 strings you're going to need: Bahafana, stake, and password. If they type in any of these 3 words, then they're good. If they type in anything else, then they failed miserably. And we're only giving them one chance. We don't have any loops for this yet. Maybe that's something you can go back and add. Add a loop to this. You get 4 chances. That'd be a good little challenge practice assignment for later. Perhaps I'll mention that further down the line. Now, honestly, I would not declare the strings, but you can if you want to. String password 1 equals this, password 2, password 3. Entirely up to you, but it's not really necessary. You're going to ask the user to type in their password, so user input, and it's going to be a string. And you're going to have some if statements. You can use switch case, you can use ifs. Remember, if we are using strings, you can't use equals equals. You have to use the dot equals for that. If you're going to use the regular ifs. If you use the switch case, it doesn't matter. Entirely up to you how you want to write it. Now, if it is Bahafana, it's going to display welcome, password accepted. If it is stake, welcome, password accepted. If it is password, which is terrible password, by the way, welcome, password accepted. Now, if it's anything other than those 3, it'll print this little message. Or if you want to put in a different message, it's fine. Uh, Something along the lines of that. So you only get 3 choices here. Now, the common mistake people run into is they'll write 3 separate if statements. If, and that's not how you're going to want to do this. If you look back at our previous ones, you're going to need a nice little structure. Only one of these choices can be true else, which we've gone over. So the else is going to be this right here. It's not a dreadfully long or difficult program if you look back at the ones we've written. And you can use ifs or switch case, if, else if, switch case, whichever you prefer. You can use JOption pane or scanner, whichever you prefer. Again, doesn't really matter in particular. And again, I would say, write them with both. Do a version where you use the scanner and if statements. Do another version where you use JOption pane and pop-ups. JOption panes and switch case. Best way to learn is just to keep doing stuff, finding tutorials and writing more stuff. You'd be surprised at how much you learn. In an actual lecture in class, you learn a lot of the basics, but not a lot of the super advanced stuff. Well, it depends on the class for the most part. But once we get to Java 2, you will learn some of the advanced stuff. But there's always, I showed you the API, the Java API, thousands of things you can do, and you're never going to learn the thousands of things or whatever in the class. There's just not enough time for that. So what the class is focused on generally is drilling the basic fundamentals into you. And anything extra, you're going to have to get off your butt and do it. Coding, programming as a career, as something, even a hobby, something you want to do, it's a very personal kind of journey. You can take classes and learn, and you'll learn a lot, depending on the classes you take, depending on the instructor, hopefully. They're good enough. They'll teach you most of the stuff you need to know. Now, if you want to learn anything specific outside of those basic fundamentals, you're going to have to go and hunt for videos, and there's hundreds of them on how to do this, how to do that. You want to learn how to display graphics on the screen and move things, interact with them? Well, I guarantee you there's at least 100 YouTube videos uh, and on what other websites, Java programming sites. If you wanted to learn a different language, C Sharp, for example, it's very similar to Java. If you wanted to learn that, it wouldn't be a huge stretch to go kind of back and forth, especially if you got a good foundation in Java. I write in C Sharp all the time, and there are some minor differences here and there depending on what you're doing, but for the most part, a lot of it is very much the same structure-wise. But this is your program. Like I said, the 10-point project for every chapter. Generally, I like to think it's something that might take someone like 10 minutes. If they really know what they're doing, less than that, really. I can write the solution for this in, just a minute or two, really. But students, I usually multiply that by 3. If I can do it in this X amount of time, well, students will do it in X times 3, and that usually tends to be a good rule of thumb, especially if they have learned what they need to learn. But this is your programming assignment. If you have any problems or questions, you can come see me. Uh, ask away, either during my office hours, whenever that happens to be. If it's during a normal semester, when we're not under lockdowns, I'll be there during my normal hours, which is almost every day at some point. Uh, During this lockdown in summer, I've taken to going to the office, like once a week on Wednesday for a couple of hours for anyone who has any physical questions. But uh, if it's different, I will either have already or will tell you when I'm in my office if it differs from any of those. So, questions, anything like that, feel free to ask. Leave messages if you need. Now, if you're asking coding questions, either coming to me personally or messaging me probably is the best way. You'll have to send me a copy of your code. Don't post like the code on the little message board where this video is, because then everybody can see it. So uh, I don't mind you asking questions as long as it's if you're going to ask questions on the message board, that's fine. That's what it's there for. Just don't like post code and stuff there for that. Uh, but if you have questions about any particular thing, I'll be happy to answer it there too, because other people probably have the same questions. It's one of the biggest flaws in any class, but programming classes in particular. Someone doesn't want to ask a question because they think it feels stupid. Uh, Other people seem to be all right. Maybe it's just me that doesn't know this. But I guarantee you there's not just you, probably a couple of others who have the same question and they also don't want to ask. So then you run into the issue of having 4 or 5 people who all have the same question. And eventually as I'm walking around the classroom or I get messages and everyone's asking the same thing, that could have been avoided if it was just asked in class. Uh, Everyone would have got the answer right there instead of, me going to each one individually and everyone asking the same question personally. But again, ask questions if you do have them. Don't hold on to them. That's it.